So we're ready to start drawing our boxes onto large paper. So I have my worksheet that has all my reference numbers. I have the large ruler that we label drawing. I have our blank sheet of paper, which is 12 inches by 18 inches. So we'll just start in the top left corner here on the worksheet, which is the top left corner of our piece of paper. Let me autofocus this. And I'm going to use a Sharpie just so you can see it better on the camera. You can just use a pencil. That way you can erase if you make any mistakes. So we start by going over a little bit past 3/8 to get to this first point. So starting in the top left, make sure that lines up. Here's 3/8, and we're going a little bit past that. So this distance is 3/8 plus a little bit. Next, we'll go down 1/8. So I'll just turn this vertical, 0 to 1/8. So this distance is 1/8. And this point will be the top left corner of my box for Mario. So this should be 1. And I'm going to go from left to right, exactly 1, and put a dot. And I want to make sure that this doesn't slant too far down or too far up. To do that, I know that the relationship of the empty space here on the left should be exactly the same on the right. So if this empty space is 1/8, then this empty space should also be 1/8. So I'm just going to double check that that's close to 1/8 so it doesn't slant too much. And it seems to be that. And then I'll just use my actual plastic ruler to connect those 2 dots straight across. And that will give us the top of the box. Next, we know the distance down is 1. So I'm going to use my paper ruler to find this distance 1 down to 0. And once again, I want to double check that this distance is the same as up here. So a little bit past 3/8, which I might have got a little bit over. So I'll just move it just a bit and then connect these 2 dots to draw the left side of this box for Mario. Then this should come down exactly 1, and it should be exactly 1 from left to right. So I can double check that, and I can see I was off a little bit, it looks like. So it should be there. I'm going to double check that just to make sure I didn't do something crazy. So there, and let's make sure this is a little bit past. Now it's not exactly a little bit past 3/8, and this goes back to where our paper wasn't exactly 1 3/4. It was a little bit bigger. So this right side is going to be a little bit off, but not enough that we're going to worry about it. But I am going to double check that this is exactly 1 to there, and 1 up and down. And just to make myself feel better, to make sure I don't mess up, I am going to take a scrap piece of paper, and I'm just going to mark exactly how much empty space is there, because something still doesn't look right. And coming down, that is pretty close. I guess I'm just overthinking this a bit. But once I feel confident that this is in the right place, we will connect that corner and then connect these 2 corners. And that will give us the box for Mario's head. Next, we'll look at this box for his torso, and we're going in a little bit past 1/8 on the left and the right. So I have my ruler that we've labeled drawing, and I'm starting on this left side, going in a little bit past 1/8 to that point, and then a little bit past 1/8 to this point. So that gives me the left side and the right side. The distance down is exactly, I'm sorry, not exactly, a little bit less than 11/16. So here is 11/16, and a little bit less than that here on the left, and a little bit less than that here on the right. Now, Since we never looked at that distance, I'm just going to use a scrap piece of paper again and just put a mark here, just making a temporary distance. Double check that it works out the same down here, and it does. I know this side is slightly different, so I'm going to make a new mark real quick. Double check that this also is about the same, and it should come over a small amount. And that will give us the dots to create the box for his torso. So we'll connect those dots and those dots, and then across the bottom. Next, let me adjust this a bit. We'll do the box for his hand. And where these are a bit smaller, I'm not going to worry as much about lines slanting or being not perfectly parallel as I did with this, just because this is so big and everything is attached to it. If you're off a little bit on the hands, it's not going to be that big a deal. So we're going to go from this bottom left corner down a 16th to the left a 16th to find this next box. So we're going to go down a 16th and then go over a 16th, and that will be the starting point for this box. And then I'll do the same thing on the right, down a 16th, over a 16th, and that will be the starting point for this box. Next, the distance from that point left is a little bit past 3/8. So here is 3/8, 0, and it's a little bit past that. I'll do the same thing on the right. Here's 3/8 and a little bit past that. And that will give us the line going across. And I'm just going to line up this dot and this dot as a guide to make them kind of straight, because I went a little bit too high on that one. Once again, it's not going to be a big deal, but just to get it close. So that will be the bottom of the boxes for his hand. From that, the distance up is 7/16. So we're going to go up 7/16. I made a mistake on my ruler. I wrote 7/8 instead of 7/16. I was confused why I couldn't find that. So 0 to 7/16, then 0 to 7/16. Same thing on the right side, 0 to 7/16, and 0 to 7/16. So once again, I'll just use those dots to kind of line up across there, and that will give us the distance for those. And then we will draw these down to connect to make the boxes for his hands. Like that. And then last, we're going to draw the boxes for his feet. So we decided earlier to start from the bottom left corner of this rectangle, which is the bottom left corner of the paper. And we're going to see how far, or not see how far, we're going to go over a little bit less than 3/8 and then up 1/8. So starting in the bottom left, 0 over to a little bit less than 3/8, and then up 1/8 will give us this corner. Then the same thing on the right side, a little bit less than 3/8. Up 1/8 will give us this corner. Then the height is a little bit past 5/16. So we're going to go up a little bit past 5/16 here on the left. Then we'll go up a little bit past 5/16 here on the right. From this point, let's go ahead and connect those dots so you can see the boxes forming and it's not quite as confusing. I know that this is a little bit less than half going into the center, and the same on the other foot. So 0, to a little bit less than half, and then a little bit less than half here on the right. Now, to keep this kind of straight, I'm just going to line up this dot on the left with the dot on the right. So I can see that I made this one a little bit high up, but I can just use this to make them pretty much the same height. Then we'll do the same thing on the bottom, a little bit less than half on the bottom. And then from the bottom right, a little bit less than half. So we can draw these lines. Well, actually, let's do this first. We'll connect these across, and this will stop with that, and this will start with that dot, and then we can connect the sides. So this gives us the boxes to draw the different parts of Mario.